It's the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs taking on the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide. And it's my SEC game of the week. And really, it's common sense, right? I mean, this game is ginormous. It's 2 top 5 teams playing. They will play this weekend, 7:30 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and there is a lot at stake. Both teams need this game badly, but in my opinion, Georgia needs this game worse. I think Georgia is 1 out of 6 in their last 6 games against Alabama. Alabama kind of has some kind of bugaboo over Georgia right now. Georgia can beat everybody, but they seem to struggle against Alabama. It's going to be a really good game. I mean, both these teams match up very well, but they will play this Saturday at 7:30 in Tuscaloosa. So let's talk more about this game. Both teams are 3-0. Georgia's coming off a 13-12 victory over Kentucky. I think that surprised everybody. Georgia did win the game, but I think everybody, myself included, was very surprised how they struggled in this game. Kentucky, the week before, got destroyed by a very mediocre at best South Carolina team. Alabama, on the other hand, went to Wisconsin, which I don't think Wisconsin's a very good team either, but and they beat them 42-10. So Alabama did what they needed to do, and they looked the part. Right now, Georgia is favored by 2 points in this game. The over-under is around 48. If I was going to bet on this game, the one thing I would do is I'd bet on the under, because I think the first team to 24 will win this game. Honestly, points are going to be a premium. Both have elite defenses. They both have elite line of scrimmages. So anytime they can get points, they need to be able to take them. Let's talk about players to watch in this game. Let's talk first with Georgia. Carson Beck. He's got 680 yards so far, 7 TDs. He's got an 84.6 QBR ranking. Pretty good year so far. It would be better if he had a better wide receiver room to throw. Carson Beck has not been as impressive as he has the last year so far because of the receiver room. The one knock I had on Georgia going into this season was the wide receiver room. I asked the question. I said, who is he going to throw to? And when I did the preseason preview and prediction, they had Raw Thomas and Dominic Lovett. Now Raw Thomas is gone. And then they lost Ladd McConkey. They lost Brock Bowers. So they are struggling to really find anybody. Dominic Lovett and Arian Smith are his 2 go-to guys, but they need more. Running the ball, they're not being very effective either. We'll get more into the numbers on that here in a minute. But Carson Beck is a guy to be watching in this game. Jalen Milroe for Alabama is the next person we'll talk about. 590 yards, 8 TDs. He's got a 76.2 QBR ranking. He's also got 156 yards rushing. Jalen Milroe is one of those guys, you better know where he's at all times, because if you let him get out of the pocket, he can take it to the house. He's having a good year. For Georgia, Malachi Starks, he's got 11 tackles. He's got 1 interception. Georgia has the best secondary in the country, and he is the best player in the secondary. When I watched the Clemson game, I saw the interception that he had in that game, just a beautiful play. Malachi Starks is a first-round kind of guy, and he will be drafted early this year. Great player. For Alabama, Jihad Campbell, he leads Alabama in tackling at 28 tackles. He goes sideline to sideline. He's a playmaker. He is a guy to be watching this weekend. For Georgia, C.J. Allen, he's got 15 tackles, which leads Georgia. He's the guy that replaced Dumas Johnson last year. He's just a sophomore. He's a rising star. He's getting better and better every game he plays. For Alabama, their leading rusher, J.M. Miller, is the next guy I'm going to talk about. He's got 265 yards and 3 TDs. He's averaging 9 yards every time he touches the football. So, he's a really good running back. So, him and Justice Haynes are a dynamic duo. They may be the best duo right now as far as running backs are concerned in college football. So let's break this thing down. Georgia offense versus Alabama defense. We got Georgia's total offense, which is 65th right now. They're averaging 402 yards a game. And that's not up to past couple years Georgia's standard. Georgia has been much, much better offensively than they have this year. A lot of this is because you don't have a lot of data 3 games in, and they really struggled against Kentucky. I think they're going to do much better going forward. For Alabama, how do they match up against that Georgia offense? Their total defense is 13th. They're only allowing 248 yards a game. Stout defense. Anything inside the top 15 to me is great. Scoring offense for Georgia, 58th. They're only averaging 32 points a game with 3 games played yet so far this season. Georgia usually scores more points than this, but I do expect them to turn it around. Scoring defense for Alabama, they're 6th. They're only giving up 9 points a game. So it will be interesting. Georgia needs to do more against this Alabama defense this week. They can't put this game completely on their defense. Georgia can't. They're going to have to create points. And they cannot be one-dimensional. Carson Beck is going to have receivers that can catch the football and move the chains. Rushing offense for Georgia, they're 84th. They're averaging 146 yards a game. Alabama, their rushing defense is 68th. They're not doing very good right now. They're allowing 132 yards a game right now. I think they struggled against South Florida. I think they gave up around 200 yards rushing against South Florida. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure when I looked at the stats, that's right. But a lot of teams struggle against that spread offense when they spread you out there, like Tennessee and South Florida do. So everybody else, they kind of held in check on the rush defense part, but at South Florida, they kind of ran on them some, so that got them a little bit lower on the list on rush defense. Pass offense for Georgia, 48th, 257 yards is what they're averaging a game. Got to turn that around. Pass defense for Alabama, 7th, 91 yards allowed. A guy I didn't talk about, Malachi Moore, is another guy in that Alabama secondary. Alabama has a very good secondary. They're led by him. The 2 Malachis in this game you need to know. Malachi Starks for Georgia, Malachi Moore for Alabama. Both are really, really good football players and players to be watching. So now let's talk about the Georgia defense versus the Alabama offense. Georgia's total defense is 4th in the country. 202 yards a game is what they're allowing. The Georgia defense isn't struggling. Now, I talked about how Georgia played bad against Kentucky. Well, the Georgia defense didn't play bad against Kentucky. It was the Georgia offense. The Georgia defense has been steady and consistent, and I expect them to be steady and consistent against Alabama this week as well. Total offense for Alabama is 24th. They are averaging 467 yards a game. Doing a pretty good start to the Kalen DeBoer era. We had some questions on how they would be able to move the ball, and so far so good. Scoring defense for Georgia, they are 3rd. They're only allowing 6 points a game right now. Alabama scoring offense is 6th. They're averaging 49 points a game. So, can Georgia's defense limit Alabama under 21 points? Because I think they're going to have to do that to win this game. That is a question to be answered. I don't see Georgia's offense scoring a lot on that Alabama defense, so they're going to have to limit them. I think Alabama has more playmakers on offense than Georgia does. That's just my opinion. So Georgia's defense is going to have to really step up, and Georgia's offense is going to have to take advantage of the opportunities that they get. Rushing defense for Georgia, 42nd. They're averaging 111 yards right now. Kentucky ran the ball on a little bit, a couple weeks ago. So they can't do that against Alabama, and I expect them to turn that around because Georgia every single year has a stout run defense, and they're going to have one again this year. But they need to do better than they did in the Kentucky game. Alabama's rushing offense is 19th. They're averaging 238 yards a game on the ground. They got a dynamic duo in Jam Miller and Haynes, and then you got Jalen Milroe back there too that can run the football. So Alabama can really run the football, just as Haynes, Jam Miller, Jalen Milroe. And on top of that, you have a great offensive line that you're running behind. So Georgia's going to have to do a better job on the rush defense. Pass defense for Georgia, that's 1st. 91 yards is what they're allowing in the air. And this is the best secondary in the country. Alabama is going to struggle to throw the football against this Georgia defense, this Georgia secondary. But they're by far, when I've watched them play, their secondary is so sound technically. They're always in position, and they are very well coached. Alabama is 69th in passing offense. They're putting up 229 yards a game. So I think Georgia definitely has the advantage right there between the receivers and the secondary. Now, I will say Alabama has a freshman receiver in Ryan Miller. He is like 17 years old. This guy's got almost 300 yards receiving this year. He is a playmaker, and he needs to have a good game in this Georgia game. It'll be interesting to see that matchup, Malachi Starks and Ryan Miller going against each other in this game. So let's talk about the turnover margin. Georgia right now is 23rd. They're +3. That's pretty darn good. Alabama's not as good. They're 72nd, and it's even. They were even, so really no plus or minus there. Penalties so far. Georgia is 119th. They are averaging 80 yards in penalties, and that's not like a Georgia team. They're usually toward the top as far as not having a lot of penalties. This year it's different. Alabama's 108th. They're averaging 73 yards, so they're not much better themselves. So here's my prediction in this game. This is a hard game to predict because it would not surprise me one bit if Georgia wins. It would not surprise me one bit if Alabama wins. Really, the home field determines it for me. It's a coin flip game, honestly. I think Georgia's going to be extremely motivated that they played bad a couple weeks back against Kentucky. Kirby's going to have them sharp. He's going to have them ready. But Alabama, in my opinion, just has a little bit better team than Georgia does. Plus, they're playing in Tuscaloosa. What playmakers does Georgia have offensively that can take advantage of that Alabama defense? And now Georgia has an amazing quarterback in Carson Beck, right? But can they make the plays through the air? I mean, Dominic Lovett, Arian Smith, can they make the plays enough? Can they catch the ball consistently enough to beat Alabama? Trevor Etienne for Georgia, is he going to be able to run the football effective enough against that Alabama front seven to win the game? Georgia's not going to have Tate Ratledge this week. I'm pretty sure he's out for a little while. So that he was their best offensive lineman. That's a blow. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a really, really, really close game. I give Alabama the edge. I think Alabama wins a very, very close game. I've got Alabama winning 24-21. If you're going to bet the under. I think this is kind of on the high end. I wouldn't even be surprised if this is a 20-17 type of game. It's going to be low scoring, and it's going to be a hard-hitting, competitive football game. But, guys, that is my prediction. Alabama 24, Georgia 21, and Alabama is off to an amazing start. And they don't have a tough game until a couple weeks later when they play Tennessee in Knoxville. So, congrats, Alabama fans. I got you guys undefeated still after the Georgia game, and I'll talk to you guys later.